They are all loaded up. Tovar, the hitter, with 2 down for Colorado. No place to put him. Got to throw strikes. Here's the 0-1. And a line drive base hit, and that's a game winner. Tovar wins it to chase in a winning run here in the 12th inning. 9-8 the final on a walk-off for Colorado. His 3rd hit of the game. Man. Well, that was one wild game. And the Red Sox have dropped 4 straight out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, 3 or 4 of those games have been just like this, just good baseball games, and they came out on the short end of the stick, but that was one heck of a baseball game, and Tovar doing a great job right there, getting a fastball and going right with it, and game winner. But I'll tell you right now, the Red Sox have a lot to be proud of. I know that stings, the 4th loss, but what a game.
Yeah, the big one is this. I mean, you go on these series, I mean, they needed that one in so many different ways, but the opportunities, right? You got to make the most of those opportunities. You got to get those runs across when you can, and that's just a tough one. That is going to be one that you look back and go, was it that game, right? But got to come back tomorrow, still have the opportunity to win the series and go on home and try to win the next series ahead of you, too.
So it ended last night in Colorado. I would consider the words of Kevin Youkilis, and I would take them seriously. That is one of those games where you wonder, was that the game? Was that the game? He didn't finish the thought, but I can finish it for you. You can finish it yourself. Because you know what he was going to say. What was that? Was that the game? That what? That was the beginning of the end for the Red Sox, or that sealed their fate as it related to the trading deadline and prompted management and ownership to shy away from adding to the roster? Was that the game that drew the line in the sand between buying and selling and altered the way the franchise thinks at the trading deadline? Was that the game that effectively ended their season when you look back? Because that was the one that broke the straw that broke the camel's back, that tilted everything in the opposite direction. Was that the one? So that's what we're left to ask now. 617-779-0985. We will take your calls. Chris Cotillo of Mass Live is going to join us because I have a bunch of questions for him, as I'm sure many of you do as well, with regard to where the Red Sox stand, what they're going to do at the trade deadline, what their biggest needs are. And my opinion on that last thing is now changing daily. I have said at various points that it could be that the right-handed hitter is actually their biggest need. And part of me still feels that way. But I don't know how you can look at the last, call it, 5 days. Let's go back to Friday night. The loss to the Dodgers, you're up 1-0 in the 8th inning, you give up a grand slam. Saturday night, you blow a couple of leads, including one in which Kenley Jansen gave up a home run to Enrique Hernandez in a closing situation when you needed to win that game badly. Then you blew another save later. Or last night where you blew a game against one of the worst teams in baseball in the Colorado Rockies and your closer wasn't available. So you add all that together, it's hard to not come to the conclusion that the Red Sox need some pitching help. And there are lots of ways to accomplish that. Go out and get yourself a starter, then push someone else into the bullpen. Go out and get yourself a reliever. Go out and get yourself both. But can I add this part? What are they waiting for? What are the Red Sox waiting for? For the team to fall out of it? Just because the trading deadline is at the end of the month, a week away, doesn't mean you have to wait until the final minutes to make a deal. You can do it now. And they can't afford to blow games to the Colorado Rockies. On the one hand, you can look at the series with the Dodgers over the weekend and say, fine, they lost to the Dodgers, who have more weapons, are a deeper team, a better team. They hung in there. If Kenley Jansen does the job, they win one of the 3 games in L.A. They come to Colorado. They clean up on the Rockies. They're in good shape going home against the Yankees. But because they couldn't do that, now the situation is more dire. Now they've lost 4 in a row. Now they're looking up at the Royals, albeit by only 1 in the loss column, but you get the idea. And I'm going to read to you a line that was in Alex Spear's story in the Boston Globe that should kind of scare the crap out of you. And that is that in the last week, Sam Kennedy and Craig Breslow both have gone on Nesson and indicated that the Red Sox had every intention of buying at the trade deadline, that they were looking to add. And yet Alex Spear wrote in today's Boston Globe, after a fourth straight loss, it remains apparent, Alex Spear says, that the Red Sox season remains at an inflection point that has yet to be resolved. The 6 games remaining until the trade deadline represent an eternity subject to plenty of additional reversals between now and July 30th. Unresolved. Still up in the air. Inflection point. Alex Spear is suggesting that the Red Sox haven't actually decided yet, even though the team president and the chief baseball officer have come out and said that they have every intention of adding at the trade deadline. Admittedly, that was before the 4 straight losses. So now, you want my opinion? Deep down, I still don't think the Red Sox want to add. And when I say deep down, I don't mean the guys wearing the uniforms. I mean ownership and management. Deep down, they would rather sell than buy because they don't think they're winning the World Series either way. But they also recognize what needs to be done. When you have a team that's in contention, and remember last week or the week before, right before the All-Star break, the Red Sox were in possession of a wild card spot. They weren't in contention for one. They were in possession of one. How could you possibly come out and say anything other than we're going to add when you're already in playoff possession of a playoff spot, when you're already in the playoffs? You can't come out and say we're going to sell. Your fans would revolt. Not that they haven't already. But now you start to fall out of it. Well, we had injuries. We got bad news on Casas. Hulk looks like he was starting to hit the wall, for lack of a better word or term. He's thrown more innings than he ever has. We just thought the performance, all the indicators were pointing down. So we decided to go in a different direction. Is that what's coming? To me, they should still add. But what I worry about with these games is that the door is going to swing open for the Red Sox to say, you know what? On second thought, we're reversing field. We've had a bad week. Some things have gone wrong. So, we had every intention of adding, but it is what it is. That's what I fear. And that's what I'm worried might be coming. 617-779-0985. We'll do Trivia Tuesday later in the show. Give away a $50 Gulf gas card. We will also speak to Chris Cotillo because I do want to talk to him about the composition of the bullpen and the absence of Kenley Jansen in particular, because that is now a story. They did not, it was a story anyway, they did not have Jansen available to close that game last night, and it cost them dearly. And in fact, they didn't really have anyone available to close that game last night because Chris Martin is hurt and Justin Slayton is hurt. They're both on the injured list. So their top 3 candidates to close were not available. Let's go to Bob in Chestnut Hill, who has been kind enough to hold since the end of Felger and Mazz. Bob, what do you got?
So listen, Mazz, as much as I would like the Sox to buy, they should sell because they don't have remotely enough pitching to compete. As you said, guys are hitting the wall. And I think that you got to get rid of assets and get value now for guys who are just rentals. And I know that's hard to hear. But, the last 4 nights made me really call today to get Jim to play the Wheel of Gutless Bums once again, to reprise that.
Okay, so Bob, before you go on, you mentioned Ty France as well, so please get to that too.
Yeah, so I was going to get to that right now. Now, if you were going to buy, one guy who's out there just put on irrevocable waivers, Ty France, all-star first baseman 2 years ago, is having a rough year, right-handed power hitter. Could cost the Red Sox nothing, really, to bring him on. If they're going to make moves, they could try to do things like that. But really, organizationally, they need a ton of pitching. And the only way they're going to do it is to move prospects and build for the future. This year, they just don't have enough.
Okay, so look, I'm not totally in line with you on saying they don't have enough this year, by the way. And when I say enough to win a World Series, you have enough to make the playoffs and then take your chances and see what happens. You have enough to do that. And so am I going to trade Marcelo Meyer or Roman Anthony or Kyle Teal, one of my top 3 prospects in the system? No. But your point, you're going to have to get pitching either way. Whether you think you can win this year or next year or whenever, how are you going to get the pitching if you don't trade for it? So why not trade for it now, keep it in your system, get someone with term on the contract, and then put yourself in a position to make a run at the playoffs this year and maybe get a little playoff experience under your belt, come back next year, add further during the offseason, and now you get a real team. See, so this is my one complaint with what the caller just said. And look, overall, it was a good call. Okay, so, but here's the point. Sell off the pieces to get pitching now? Who's going to get you some sort of stud pitcher back that you can plug in now? Kenley Jansen? You think that's going to get you a premium prospect when he can walk at the end of the year? He isn't. You didn't give up a premium prospect for Nathan Eovaldi or even Eric Gagne when you got him in 2007. My point is, you get the idea. You're not going to fix your organization unless you trade Rafael Devers at the deadline. You want to trade Rafael Devers, someone will give you 3 premium prospects for him. You're not going to get that for a guy who'll be there for 2 months and has an expiring contract. So I would rather the Red Sox trade for a pitcher by giving up Nick York. I was going to say, who's the kid at AAA who's playing second base? Nick York, former first rounder under Chaim Bloom. I would make that kind of deal now because you whiffed on the pitching market last winter. And I said this then, and I'll say it again. If you weren't going to buy it last winter, where are you going to get it? You have to trade for it. This pitching market sucks. You have to trade for it. So go out and go get some real pitching and do it at this deadline. It'll solve a lot of problems and keep your team in contention in the process. 617-779-0985. Are you worried that the Red Sox will not add? That this losing streak will persuade them to back off? Because I am. We'll ask someone who might have a better grasp of what's going on inside the walls of Fenway Park when we come back on the Baseball Hour. This one without their closer, Kenley Jansen, who is not in Colorado with the team because he has had some disturbances in his heartbeat or heart rhythm that have required shock therapy when he's visited Colorado the last couple of times, most recently in 2022, which was before he was with the Red Sox as a member of the Atlanta Braves. Went to Colorado, had a disruption in his heartbeat, and had to basically have his heart shocked back into rhythm. I think I read that it was atrial fibrillation, which, again, if you're familiar with that, you understand or you know people who have it and the kind of care it requires and what have you. And high altitude endeavor, he wasn't able to make the trip. So I have some questions less about Jansen than I do about the Red Sox and how they have approached this time of year. And I think it's all related, especially now that Jansen is not in Colorado. They have a couple of other injuries on their pitching staff. They're shorthanded in that bullpen, and they're blowing games. Meanwhile, the trade deadline's a week away, and they continue to basically just wait. And my question is, wait for what? So with that in mind, let's bring in Chris Cotillo. Mazz Live joins us via the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. And Chris, I'll start with the most basic question, which is, how worried should we all be about the bullpen?
I think it's obviously, running on fumes. Slayton and Martin are out. Slayton seems to be kind of progressing and getting back here. He's playing catch in Boston, and, you could see him throwing a live BP in the next couple days or weeks and then moving on to a rehab assignment. Jansen will obviously be back on Friday. This is not a long-term thing. You just, altitude is the whole deal there. Chris Martin is a guy who's going to be out, I think, for a little while here. He's been shut down, not throwing. They were talking about doing imaging. So, when you have really your three highest leverage relievers down, you have a guy like Weissert struggling as much as he has. You have a guy like Bernardino who's not been himself the last month. You're relying on a lot of unproven guys. Cam Boozer, Bailey Horn, Zach Kelly, those guys have been, pretty good throughout the year, but they've been pretty good in the roles that they've been in, earlier in the games, and now they're thrust into kind of the late game roles. And we've seen that, the bullpen has not been an issue all year. It's been excellent. It was pretty good last year. And over the last 4 days, we've seen, a ton of blown saves. Kenley Jansen with a couple of bad games at his old home in Dodger Stadium. Kelly last night. I think it's, a cause for concern, but they're just very, very depleted. There's not a lot in the way of options at AAA. Isaiah Campbell, a guy that might have gotten called up, he hit the IL today with elbow inflammation at AAA. So they're banged up and they don't have the depth. And now I think it's just an area of weakness on the roster. And it's one of these things that, you see when you're playing a lot of extra inning games or games where you have the late lead. Like last night, they used 6 different relievers out of the 8 that they had, or the 7 that they had, I should say. Tonight they need Cooper Criswell to go like 7, right, to get them through. And that's a big ask for a guy that has been a spot starter, 5th starter, AAA guy all year. So it's not, in a good place. Alex Cora talked about the last few years. What screwed them is that they've run out of pitching. That's happening right now for sure. And I do want to say, Tony, I think it's a very, almost inexplicable rule by MLB that they can't get another pitcher to replace Jansen on the roster. I think that is completely ridiculous. It's not like he's making this up, but they can't put him on the IL for 15 days. If he goes on a restricted list, that's not going to fit this situation. I think it's ridiculous. It's something that someone made the point to me the other day when guys, refuse to be vaccinated and go to Canada. Not to make this a political thing, I'm not. But when they did, they could be replaced on the roster for a choice they were making. Kenley Jansen didn't choose to have heart issues, and they can't replace him. I think that's a horrible, horrible rule by Major League Baseball.
Okay, so Chris, you threw a lot at me there. Let's do.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Let's do something here in short bursts, because to me it ultimately leads to a question. First of all, they've known about Jansen's situation since spring training. True?
Yep.
Okay,
definitely.
So they knew they were going to Colorado, and they knew this was coming up. When did Slayton go on the injured list?
Right before the break.
Okay, and when did Chris Martin go on the injured list?
4th of July, right around a week before Slayton.
Okay, so that was 3 weeks ago, and then Slayton was on before then. And the trading deadline is coming up in a week. So true or false, they've had time here to assess this and to make contingency plans and add people to the bullpen, even though the trading deadline is a week away. True or false?
True. I think it comes down to just asking prices. It's a seller's market with the expanded playoffs. There's so many teams that are going for it. There's so many teams that are, looking at either buying or being on the buy-sell line. You have probably, 5 or 6 teams that are legitimate sellers at this point, and they're holding on those guys and having extremely high demands because, they want to wait till the end. So it's not that, the Red Sox are, alone in a vacuum here with this. I think there's just a ton of buyers, not that many sellers, and they're waiting toward the 29th or 30th to take the best offer.
Okay, so what about a guy like Hunter Harvey who just went to the Royals? What was the price for him, and is that something the Red Sox could have paid?
The other one, Nick Anderson, got DFA'd by the Royals as part of those moves. A guy that was good in Tampa a couple years ago has bounced around a little bit, ended up signing with the Dodgers. I mean, those are the types of guys that you think the Red Sox, just to get an arm, should be aggressive on. I don't know much about Harvey. I know it cost, I think the Royals traded a draft pick, I believe, with that trade. So, but Anderson was a guy that I think made a lot of sense. People around the Sox were talking about him a little bit. I know you don't want scrap heap guys, but probably an upgrade over what you were getting with him.
Okay, so look, you understand where I'm going with this. Do I have a right to look at the Red Sox and say, what the hell are you waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's about the sellers are not selling yet, other than, the Harvey move was kind of the outlier there. And, we're starting to see kind of the scrap heap guys. Paxton and Ty France have become available. Those guys make a lot of sense. But other than that, this is how the deadline works now. It all happens in the, 72 hours before the hard stop at 6 o'clock on the 30th, just because the expanded playoffs has made it that way. When I started covering the team in 2018, you saw them make the Steve Pearce trade in June. They made trades, earlier on when they got Andrew Kastner, who was terrible. They did that a week before the deadline in 2019. Those moves aren't happening. They just don't happen around the league right now. And so, if you want to give up one of your best prospects for a seventh inning guy, then you can do the trade now. I know Hunter Harvey, whatever, that's different. I think you have to wait to get stuff done in the world they live in right now.
Okay. Do you have any concerns that the Red Sox are, I don't know how to phrase this, that the Red Sox are playing themselves out of being buyers? Does that make sense? In other words, that ownership and management is looking at this and saying, okay, that's 4 losses in a row. We're now out of the playoffs. We were in it before the All-Star break, but now we're out. And if this continues for another 2 or 3 days, we're actually going to sell off pieces. Is it that fluid a situation where it could go either way?
It probably shouldn't be, because it's really a chicken or the egg thing. Like, if you fill the weaknesses, just what you were talking about, whether that be the bullpen or, right-handed pop to the problem on this road trip is they've been terrible offensively against lefties. They lost to 2 guys, including Paxton, who got DFA'd in L.A., took a while to get going against Gomber last night. They'll face another lefty, not a good one in Colorado tonight. But we've seen the strikeout numbers and everything against lefties. Like, the needs are kind of clear. So you're losing these games because of the needs you can fill. But at the same time, the playoff odds are going down while they're doing it. I don't know. I do think, Sean McAdam and I reported over the weekend talking to people, like, they have not signaled to teams what they were doing yet at that point, leaning toward buying. I heard the Buster Only thing the other night on, that you guys played a lot yesterday. I think that's probably a little premature to say they were going to be aggressively buying. It just seems like it's all over the place. Craig Breslow keeps talking about picking a lane. Jeff Passan today says they could buy or sell. Buster Only says they're all in on buying. And Alex Spear has, it's possible that O'Neill and Jansen and Pivetta get dealt. So, that's just, I guess, what it is this time of year. It seems like they are still stuck in the middle. They never really signaled that clear intent to buy. It seems like Breslow is leaning that way with public comments. But, when it all comes down to it, I think this deadline might pass with, not a very, major move either way. If they can find a way to, maybe move Jansen and, get somebody else back, it just feels like that's one of those, running in place type things that they tried to do a couple years ago. It would be underwhelming for everybody.
Well, I don't need to tell you, Chris, people are going to love that. And I think that this team, frankly, deserves a little bit better than that, particularly, and not to get on this road, it's a whole different discussion. But if they want to contend next year, they're going to have to get pitching somewhere, Chris. And the free agent market is not great. They missed on the free agent market last offseason. Sooner or later, they're going to have to trade and make a deal, is what it comes down to. But
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I think there's two guys that, are, and Sean and I talked about this on our podcast the other day. There's two guys out there that are probably perfect for them that are going to cost a ton, and Crochet in Chicago and Scooble in Detroit. I think Crochet's more likely to move. Is that going to cost you one of the big three? Probably. Are they probably going to ask for two of the big three right now? Yes, and that's too much of a price. But like when you look at a young, extremely talented left-handed starter, that's probably, your white whale right now. And I would probably, consider doing anything for one of those guys, especially, if Scooble is available, a guy that's been an ace in Detroit. Unclear if those guys will move, but they really do fit what they're trying to do. Cost-controlled starter moving forward. And I don't know. Those guys are very attractive to me.
All right, Chris, we'll see what happens. I'm not holding my breath. I'm starting to get very sort of discouraged and pessimistic about this, but then again, that's my nature. So, Chris, listen, thank you for joining us.
Anytime. Thanks.
All right. Again, Chris Cotillo, Mass Live via the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. When we come back, Trivia Tuesday. Okay? So you know how this works. We'll take the first two callers right now for Trivia Tuesday. We'll speak with you when we come back from break, but you can call in now. 617-931-0985. That's the contest line. 617-931-0985. Trivia Tuesday presented by Golf. The winner will score a $50 Golf gas card if you can answer this week's question correctly. If you don't, we move on to person number two. I'll ask a different question. If that person also fails, we'll take two others, a max of 4 callers. And again, Trivia Tuesday presented by Golf. Just download the Golf Pay mobile app for everyday savings. Golf, it all starts here. Kevin Majori has your headlines, and then we'll be back with your calls. More on the Red Sox and Trivia Tuesday.
Sports Hub headlines.
The Red Sox have lost 4 straight after they were defeated by the Colorado Rockies in 12 innings last night, 9-8. Their 3-game series continues at Coors Field tonight against the Rockies. Cooper Criswell gets the start. First pitch is at 8:40.
is where your baseball knowledge can lead to fabulous prizes. And now, here's your host, Tony Mazzarati.
All right, we do it every week. Trivia Tuesday. Matt McCarthy do this last week, Jimmy Stewart?
He did.
Did we have a winner or a loser?
We had a winner, but it was on the fourth contestant.
Okay, so you got through 3 of them before someone got it right.
Correct.
Okay, see, that's my goal. I want to, milk it. I want people to win. That's the goal, to give away the golf gift cards, gas cards, $50. Fill up your tank. No small thing. That's a week of driving.
Tony, we thought we had an easy question.
Okay.
It was name Pedro Martinez started the 99 All-Star game. Name the National League starter at Fenway Park.
I would not have gotten that correct. That was a long time ago, and I never would have remembered that. But it's a good question. Kurt Schilling is correct, right? You told me that before the show. It's the only reason I know it. So, again, you'll get a $50 golf gas card. But my point is, I do want people to win. However, I would like to build some drama in the process, which means asking a question that's hard enough that, you can't just pick it off the top of your head and know the answer to. And I will change the question as we go. So in theory, the third person or the fourth person could get an easier question, but that's the luck of the draw. So we'll start tonight with Anthony in Brighton. He's on line 9. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Line 9 was the first one, right, Jimmy?
Line 9, yes.
Andrew in Ipswich. Anthony in Brighton, sit tight. Andrew in Ipswich is contestant number 1. Andrew, are you there?
Hey, Tony. How are you?
Okay, I'm good. So you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Just quickly, Andrew, how old are you?
I am 37.
Okay, 37. Well, then, this might be in your wheelhouse, and we'll see.
All right.
The trading deadline's coming up here in just about a week. In 1976, the Oakland A's conducted a fire sale, a very famous fire sale, in which owner Charles Finley, sold off many of his star players. He sent 2 to the Red Sox for cash considerations. They wore your Red Sox uniforms and never played for them before the deals were voided by the commissioner, basically stopping the trades. But these 2 players wore uniforms and could have been Red Sox, and for a brief time were Red Sox players. Name one of them.
This is 1976.
Correct.
Jeez. From Oakland to Boston. 1976. Jeez. I'll go Ricky Henderson.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know.
Andrew, it's okay. Thank you. It's a hard question, but it's a great one. And I don't usually give the answers. I'm going to give them here now. Raleigh Fingers and Joe Rudy. Look it up. Raleigh Fingers was wearing a Red Sox uniform and was sitting in the freaking bullpen. Had they put him in the game that night, he would have been stuck here. They wouldn't have been able to reverse the trade. Instead, they let him sit there. The commissioner then vetoed the deal and sent all the players back to Oakland because it felt like Finley was making a mockery of it. Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner, vetoed the deals. Big moment in baseball history. You should look that one up. It's worth. In fact, you know what? Someone should do like a documentary on it if it hasn't been done already.
Should write a book on it.
Anthony in Brighton, contestant number 2. Anthony, you there?
Yeah. What's up, Mazz?
Okay, we're going to go with a different question for you. Okay. At the 1986 trading deadline, the Red Sox made a big trade with the Seattle Mariners to acquire this outfielder and this shortstop. Who were they? And you have to name both.
Dave Henderson was the outfielder. And shortstop.
You're Googling.
No, I don't know.
All right, I'm going to let you go. I'll give the answer again because I don't know that we're going to do trading deadline questions. Dave Henderson and Jimmy, who was the shortstop?
Spike Owen.
Spike Owen is correct. Those 2 guys. I don't need to tell you what Dave Henderson did in the playoffs that year. Some great dramatics. Forever a part of baseball history. We do have one line open for the 4th trivia spot. The 3rd.
Do I get half the gas card?
Say that again?
Do I get half the gas card with the caller?
No. 617-931-0985. Jimmy in Rosendale is going to be our third caller. We are looking for a fourth contestant in the event that Jimmy goes up in smoke. So again, we take a max of 4. But Jimmy and Rosendale will have up here momentarily, I should say, because I think I'm frozen here. Jimmy, let me try. I can't get him. Jimmy, can you punch him up? Jimmy, you there?
Yeah, I just heard the ding.
Okay, good. Jimmy, it sounds like you're a little older.
I'm going to try my best, TM. We'll see what happens on this occasion.
Okay, so the reason I say that is because I may ask you a more difficult question.
But that's okay. I heard the one earlier, but that's okay. Whatever it is, fire away.
Okay, so let me see. All right, here's one for you. Mariano Rivera. It was just Hall of Fame weekend, as you know.
Yes.
Mariano Rivera is the only player in baseball history to be named on 100% of Hall of Fame ballots cast. Where is Mariano Rivera from? What country?
I believe it's the Dominican Republic.
That is incorrect.
Ouch.
That is incorrect. It is not.
Ouch.
It is not the Dominican Republic. It's a good.
Ouch.
It's a good guess. It's a logical guess. A lot of players do come from the Dominican Republic. Mariano Rivera is from Panama. So again, that's a difficult question. Paul in Marlboro, you were contestant number 4. Jimmy, you're gonna have to punch up Paul. I can't do it again. I'm frozen out here. Paul, are you there?
I am here, Tony.
Okay, Paul, you got lucky tonight. You're the easy one. You're going to get the
I hope so.
You're going to get the easy one.
We'll see about that.
All right.
Okay. How old are you, by the way, Paul?
I am 60.
60, okay. And I can turn back the clock here a little bit. Let's go with this. Let's stick with the Hall of Fame. The Baseball Hall of Fame recently inducted its latest class into Cooperstown, as I said to the last caller. Which former Red Sox lifer will be on the ballot for the first time this coming off season for potential election in 2025?
Dustin Pedroia.
Dustin Pedroia is correct. Very good. There you go. Dustin Pedroia is correct. So Paul in Marlboro is our winner. He'll get the $50 Gulf gas card. Let me just read this again before I throw it in the trash. Trivia Tuesdays, again, presented by Gulf. The winner every week will score a $50 Gulf gas card presented by Gulf. Download the Gulf Pay mobile app for everyday savings. Gulf, it all starts here. We can take another call or two before we get to the final segment. Our buddy Dean in Shrewsbury. Jimmy's on line 1. If you could punch him up for me. Dean, what do you got, pal?
I think we got to add just basically no matter what happens in this next week and a half or just next week now, the reason we're losing is the holes in our roster that we know are there.
Which holes, Dean?
So the left-handed starter, right-handed bat, and like a 7th, 8th, 9th guy with the injuries in our bullpen. And we can take on like overvalued contracts, no problem. We have space, so just fill those holes and our team will be playing much better because they're just like losing the lefties right now.
So, Dean, I happen to agree with you. And I said this the other day. The absence of a right-handed bat in the middle of that lineup is a big thing. It's a big thing. It completely changes your lineup. Now, look, I can tell you in the same breath that of the last 4 games the Red Sox have lost, they've scored 6 runs in 2 of them. And last night, what was the final, Jimmy? 9-8? So 8 runs last night, you lose the game. So now, I'm no mathematician, but 20 runs in 3 games that you've lost is you're scoring plenty. Now, one of those defeats was a game you were actually down 9-3 at the time, and then you tacked on 3 runs late, so the 6 is a little deceiving. And the other bullpen game that you blew was a 4-1 game in which you did not score enough. So, but my point is the righty bat, at least the last few days, has not really been as big a deal as you may think. They have missed other opportunities to score, certainly. But I think the bigger issue, certainly in the last 3 games, has been the bullpen. The question is whether or not, if you get a starting pitcher, does that allow you to move someone from your staff into the bullpen? For example, what if you put Nick Pivetta in the bullpen? Could that change things down there? Or if you put Tanner Houck in the bullpen because you're worried about his innings total, could that change things? Now, again, you're going to rob from your starting rotation to do it, but you get the idea. Trading for one pitcher might fill two needs. You were able to put a starter into the rotation and move one of your current starters into the bullpen. Now you got both. But the bat is going to be a hard thing to get. And a guy like Ty France, who has been basically released or in the process of being released by the Seattle Mariners, irrevocable waivers, is worth a shot. Justin Turner, worth a shot. There were guys like that out on the market that you can take a gamble on, which I suspect the Red Sox will do. And my guess is they're going to go dumpster diving and do what they've done and just pick up some scrubs. There is one thing about the starting pitching and the pitching in general, though, that you should keep in mind, which we'll touch on when we come back to wrap it up on the Baseball Hour. All right, back here on the Baseball Hour. I have a quick thought on the pitching. Not that revolutionary, but I'll get to it momentarily. First, we do have a caller on the line. Ferd in Worcester on the Red Sox selling during the trade deadline. Ferd, what do you got?
Good evening, Mazz and Jimmy. I think that if the Red Sox get swept by Colorado, right now they're 2 games out of the wild card. If they lose the next 2 games and are 4 games under, I think the Red Sox are going to sell at the deadline. Your thoughts? Have a good evening.
Okay, so Ferd, it's hard to say that won't happen. I mean, if they get swept by the Rockies, their bullpen's in shambles. Kenley Jansen will be back for the weekend with the Yankees, but, how do you fix the rest of it? Chris Cotillo was on a short time ago, made a good point. Martin's not coming back for a little while. Slayton is at least a week away, 2 weeks away. You could be 6, 7 out by then. And then it's over. So here is my issue. And I said this during the offseason. I'll say it again now, and I'll continue to say it. When the Red Sox went out on the market last offseason, they needed to get starting pitching. Okay? Were they ready to contend for a championship? No. But they had to get the pitching anyway. Where else were they going to get it in the organization? You needed to get Yamamoto or Imanaga or take whatever pick of a guy you want out there on the market. I don't care who you pick. Someone who was a front-end type of guy. You needed someone to build the staff around. You had to go get that kind of guy. Or you had to trade for Dylan Cease or whatever. You get the idea. It was a good pitching market last offseason. They got Lucas Giolito, whom they're now going to pay for a second season, is going to pitch a half a year for him. And then he's going to become a free agent again. So they're going to lose him. They needed to get somebody longer term. They didn't do that. So now, next year, if they are ready to start contending, they still got to go out and get pitching. So if you can get a pitcher at this deadline who has term in his contract and you can keep for 2, 3, 4 years down the road, that's a deal you almost have to make. You have to make that deal. Now, do you want to give up Kyle Teal, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer? No, you don't, and they won't. But you can give up Nick York and some combination of lower-level prospects to go get yourself somebody. And is that going to get you a Dylan Cease? I don't know. But you got to try to do something. There's got to be someone out there that you can get to try to fortify your rotation for 2025 and beyond. So let's just say you don't think you can win the World Series this year. Fine. Most people don't. In fact, I've yet to find someone who thinks that the Red Sox are a legit World Series threat. I don't think that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get good. And it also doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to get playoff experience for the younger guys on your roster. Why not get them a little bit of taste of it now when Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts, and Bogaerts is sort of different because he was here in 2013, but Devers and Bradley and all those guys, when they came up in 2015, the team was in last place. In 2016, they got experience. 2 years later, and they get experience again in 2017. But in 2018, they won the World Series. By then, they were ready. You should be thinking about a similar kind of process. You just don't go from 0 to 100. It doesn't always work that way. The whole worst to first thing, the Red Sox, it's not a good way to live. And it's not a good way to plan for championships or success. Anyway, top of the hour, Nick Cattles has got you for the rest of the night. Kevin Majori's got your headlines here coming up next. Don't go anywhere. No commercials. We'll catch you tomorrow.